Obviously, since the Supreme Court has ruled on the Defense of Marriage Act and kind of pretty much struck down most of it, so things are changing, and there's a lot to think about, But yesterday, like I normally do on a Sunday, I text Rabbi Freeman and I try to find out, what's the topic going to be. Now, I know you must have been busy, so it took you a while to respond back. So in the meantime, my wife decides, since it's been raining for 3 or 4 days, that she's going to take me to go buy clothes. Now, this is usually like a once every 3 years. As you can see, I'm pretty much a t-shirt and jean guy. And
you mean you have more than one of those?
I have like 6 of these, and this is pretty much what I wear. And every 3 years they wear out. They kind of fade.
Go to your closet, it's like black
t-shirts, jeans, and one pair of sneakers that every year or so they wear out as well. So I get the same pair of black sneakers again when they run out. So I go to the store, which is a horrible thing for me, and but it was raining while I'm waiting for your text. And we go into Bloomingdale's, which I haven't been to a store like this in a while. And we're going to buy jeans. So we were walking down to the men's department to buy jeans. And the first person, I want to find somebody who can help us out. The first person we come in contact with is, let's say, a very well-fed woman, not dressed that well. And she can either help us out, or on the other side, there's a man, a nice dressed man, nice earrings, dressed to the T's, wearing jeans that are so skinny that there's no way there's blood getting down to his ankles. It was perfect. So I obviously choose that person because I figured this guy knows about style. I figured I might as well be in, since I'm going to wear these clothes for the next 3 years and I'm going to be out pretty soon, so I might as well start out in. So we get this nice man, and very nice guy, but probably he's long since passed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I mean, he's told. He knows. So he helps us out. We get a lot of clothes. I'm trying everything on. Then I get the text from you about what our topic is this week. And the topic being about the Supreme Court's decisions on gay marriage. I figured nothing's a coincidence in this world. I think everything's got to mean something. So I figured I got to get some meaning out of my trip to Bloomingdale's here. And I'm thinking as I'm looking around, in this section, there were maybe 10, 12 men walk by, and not a one of them doesn't own the complete Cher 6 CD box set. There's no doubt about it. This crowd knows what by the way, Cher, most gay men like Cher. I wasn't sure if you knew that.
I didn't know that.
They're really into Cher.
I didn't know that. Ever since Sonny left her,
right.
I haven't been paying too much attention.
Yeah, Cher is really big in the gay community. Very big. Really? So that's where that came. That was where that came from.
Well, and I learned 2 things. First of all, she's big in the community. Second, that she's alive.
Well, she's still alive.
I haven't heard of her since I think that was like the 1969.
Yeah, she's not singing the same music anymore. Different crowd.
Okay.
So there I am, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking around. These are
What's
nice.
Sonny got to say about
Sonny's
that?
gone.
He's gone.
Sonny's gone. He had a tree skiing. He didn't. It was not good. He's gone. But so yeah, that's sad. Oliver Sholem, is that what you say there? Or Sonny. So anyway, so I'm looking at this crowd. These are nicest people in the world. Well dressed, well educated, happy people. Walking around, so I'm thinking, what's the issue? What is the issue here? Why is there such a contradiction now between the Torah and obviously now our government? There's obviously a huge contradiction now. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think the Torah is intolerant. I don't think it's being prejudiced. I don't think it's anything. I think when you look at what's going on here, these people are great, have a right to be individuals. They have a right to do everything they want. But maybe the Torah is a lot smarter than everybody today in society, every day in politics. And it's saying clearly, do what you want to do, but our society cannot sustain itself with this one act. I mean, listen, you can be happy, go to Cher, go to Madonna, do whatever you want to do, but this one act of a sexual act, actually not one, I think it lists like 20 acts, the society cannot sustain itself on that. Doesn't preach intolerance, doesn't preach anything else, it just says these are the rules, these are the boundaries, and the society has to have boundaries. And I know these people are happy people, let them go on and be happy people, do what they want to do, but just don't do that.
Well, this is a, obviously...
by the way, I bought a bunch of these skinny jeans. Well, next time you see me, I'll have the same black T-shirts, but I probably won't be as comfortable next week after it gets altered.
Right. So, and from that, that he is wearing the jeans actually, like, as you can't see below the table, but he is wearing jeans, thank God.
Yes.
So, we got this situation, and many people say to me, okay, Supreme Court decision. Well, what changed? I mean, come on, did anything change? Do you think Bloomingdale's was different this week and last week or 2 weeks ago? Probably you would have gone any Sunday or whatever day you went. You would have seen the same things going on. What really changed? Where does it matter that the Supreme Court made the decision? Everyone knows what's going on. This is where our society is at. And, all of a sudden, people like myself put out this clarion call. This is bad because the Supreme Court. What does that really matter?
Right.
So, actually, I'd like to do a little history lesson.
Okay.
History lesson, history of Jews in America. History of Jews in America. We'll roll the clock back. You could really go back to like maybe the 1840s,
Right.
1848.
Right.
Actually, there was big upheaval in Germany, and a lot of the first substantial wave of Jews came from Germany, Central Europe, came to America in the 1850s. And then the big wave started after 1881 with the pogroms in 1881. So then the Eastern European Jews came.
Right.
A couple million came between 1883 and 1921 or so. So those are the big ones. When the Jews came to America, they found something here that they certainly didn't have in the countries they were coming from. And who knows if we'd ever had it in all of history. But certainly not in the last couple of hundred years, which was everyone's frame of reference.
Right.
And that is tolerance.
Right.
Tolerance.
Big thing.
I mean, America is about freedom. Freedom. That's, freedom. It says freedom on the coin. Freedom everywhere. It's freedom, freedom, freedom. It's all about freedom. And freedom requires tolerance. So freedom and tolerance that's what America's all about. The Jews came here and they fell in love with this country.
That makes sense.
Because it offered them freedom, and the government was not officially and even unofficially out to make them into something else. It wasn't like the Tsar. The Tsar was doing all this horrible stuff, and he said clearly in all of his private communiques, the purpose is we'll either kill them or turn them into Christians.
Right.
Which was, had been, you can name the country, name the continent.
Pretty standard for Jews there.
Right. The Jews have been running into that like all over the place. Either kill them or make them into whatever we are. So here for the first time we come to this country. In this country, people fell in love with this country. They loved it. It was a land of opportunity. And people felt grateful. And Jews dedicated themselves to supporting the country and everything that it stood for. And the Jews actually created this sort of narrative, this like American narrative, that actually American principles and rules are really Jewish rules. That
Right.
Judaism and American values are really like one and the same.
I can see
To
that.
be a good Jew, you're a good American. And vice versa. It's almost like to be a good American, you're a Jew. Like even if you're not Jewish. But if you're a good American, like that's as good as being a good Jew.
Right.
And they worked it all together. And people are dedicated. They stood behind America. They stood behind the whole government. They stood behind its policies. Now and then, there were bumps in the road. For example, during the Holocaust, during the Second World War,
Right.
it became clear to people who were in the know, although the press suppressed this until later in the war, that the Nazis were really just wholesale murdering, slaughtering Jews. And it also became clear that the United States government, Roosevelt and others, knew about it.
Yep.
Many Jews in the power structure were afraid to challenge him on that because that would place them at odds with America. And they were good Americans, and they were devoted, patriotic, good citizens. And really being a good citizen and being a good American was number one. Jewish parents send their child out to school every day, be a good American, pledge allegiance, and everything like that. So they didn't challenge it. Later on, when they found out what had happened, there was a lot of discomfort. But we managed to patch that over. And these things come up now and then, but we always manage to patch it over, such as Pollard. Okay,
Right.
Government is treating him like despicably. But an American Jew can always say, well, listen, he broke the law. He did break the law.
It's a little tougher now since our government is saying it's okay to spy on your allies.
Right.
It's a little different now, but
Right. I mean,
I read that quote a couple weeks ago. I was thinking of Jonathan Pollard there.
Right. Actually, to tell you the truth, it could very well be that the reason that they're beating up on Pollard so bad is because they're trying to suppress the extent to which
Right.
they spy on
Each other.
friendly nations,
Right.
and Pollard kind of messed that up.
Yeah.
But okay, so now
Different story.
They're beating on Pollard, but an American can always say, "Hey, listen, he broke the law. He did break the law." You know, and any time they come down hard on a particular Jew, usually you can say, listen, the guy broke the law, so I can be a good American and stand behind what the government's doing, even though it might look like it's anti-Jewish. Now, many times it looked like America was at odds with Israel. But American Jews always managed to work that out.
Yes, they do.
You know, one way or another, to say, really, you have to understand what really they're trying to do is for the best of Israel, and Israel doesn't have the big picture, and the United States has a big. You could always work it out. It was not crystal clear. So it got to the point where American values became Jewish values. So whatever the government came up with, the American Jews said, you got to believe in it because it's Jewish. So that's Jewish.
Right.
Now we're at a point, and of course the whole thing revolves around freedom. And therefore Jews became the number one proponents of freedom. And personal freedom is worth more to Jews than anything. Because what do you want? You want the Tsar? You want to go back to Russia? They knock on the door and they grab your kid and he's gone. You never see him again. You put in the Tsar's army and then, you never see him again. So you want that? You want pogroms? You want all that? No. It's all about freedom. And Jews have been the big proponents of all kinds of freedoms and personal freedoms. And of course, the envelope is pushed and pushed and pushed, and there is no end.
Right.
So it just keeps opening up. Now, along comes this decision. Now, you'll say to me, listen, these people have been living their own lifestyles all over the place. They're in Bloomingdale's. They're in every Dale that there is, right? They're in, you name it.
Right.
They're all over the place. So what does it matter what the Supreme Court did? So here's why I believe it really makes a difference. It makes a difference because this is the first time, to the best of my knowledge, that the official government of the United States, through the Supreme Court, which is the final arbiter of what is the law in the United States, wrote, and I think this was Justice Kennedy wrote, that it is, I'm forgetting now the language, but he said, it's a disgrace or it's despicable to the children of these families not to recognize these people, not to recognize their marriages.
Right.
Which means that anyone that doesn't recognize their marriages is now acting despicably to someone else. Now, we've got the Torah. The Torah happens to say pretty clearly that homosexual relations is forbidden.
Right.
Okay, so forget about like right or wrong and all that type of stuff. But the bottom line is, I'm now an adherent of a religion that the Supreme Court has said is despicable.
Right. So this one's that's not too far. If the act is despicable and you're despicable for supporting the act, then you're despicable as well, I guess, is how it works.
So this is horrible. Now, I don't forget exactly Kennedy's language, but it was something along those lines, right? And I remember, and I think Scalia responded to that. He says, well then, listen, you're turning everyone else, by your decision, you're turning everyone automatically into a bigot. Okay? And well, how about my Bible? So now for the first time, if I'm a Jew, now many Jews said, okay, so forget about the Bible. I'm going with America, not going with the Bible.
Right.
For those Jews that are Bible adherents, and I guess for anyone, Jew or non-Jew, in the country that is a Bible adherent, that thinks that the Old Testament has some value, or Jews who think the only Testament has some value. So now they're officially at odds with the government. And this means something very substantial. What it means is that now, if I want to be an Orthodox Jew, I can't really raise my child to be a loyal American to the extent that the government is a good government and all of its values are good.
Right.
And it's good for us because at this point the government has now made a decision that something that we hold to be a bad value is officially a good value. And as a matter of fact, if we're going to be a proponent of the fact that it's a bad value, it'll literally put us at odds. And I'm just wondering down the road whether there will actually be legal recourse against those of us that believe, as the Torah does, that the marriage is not a marriage and that it's not a good act and it's a bad thing to do.
I don't think we have to go that far down the road because I think that's already starting to go that way. And it's a good point. So what you're saying now, to be a Jew and probably in some cases to be a Christian as well, you're clearly going against the United States government.
Right, so how do I raise my child? And I'll tell you one other thing that's very interesting. On a moral level, if I want to raise my child, up until now, I could always describe other people. If my kid was in Bloomingdale's, and he goes, "What's with those people? That's so strange. You know, they don't look
Not anymore."
right? So then I could always say to them, they are deviant. That's not the way we act. It's not the way we conduct ourselves. That is a deviant activity from our perspective. And I could write that up. But once the government has put its weight behind that activity and legalized it, as it were, and recognized it, as it were, so now I can't say as well to my child, that's deviant activity. My child says, "What do you mean deviant activity? Everyone does that. It's legal. It's written up in the books. How can it be deviant if it's normalized?" So the government has now normalized it, which means that then I have to say, well, the government is deviant. If I'm saying the government is deviant, then I have to raise my child, even in a moral perspective, to look at the entire environment that we live in and say that it's not a healthy one, it's not a good one. And that means that I now have to raise my children sort of at odds. Up until now, I could always say, well, the government is good. It's a nice, good government, and it supports us and helps us talk freely on the internet, and it lets me build my synagogue, and it lets us have our Jewish schools, and it's really, really nice because in the past history it never did. It's really, really a great thing. And it never really did anything officially antithetical, so it was okay. But now I'm put in a quandary. How do I raise my child?
Well, I think it even goes one step further. It's not just that you can't describe your child as deviant behavior. I think the problem is now your behavior is going to be deviant. And I think that's the next step. I mean, because you feel for you to teach your child something like this is actually a deviant act. And I think the long-term problem for Jews and maybe Christians as well is what comes from this. As you said, is it going to be illegal to teach that in your synagogue? Is it going to be illegal to talk about it in school? Is it going to be illegal to keep a job? Can you keep a job by saying things like that? I mean, you're kind of just that angry man clinging to your God and your gun and your Bible there, and I think that's going to be a deviant behavior in itself at some point.
And this is like, harkens back to Soviet Union and people that were Subbotniks, or Sabota Sabbath.
Right.
If you were observing Sabbath, on a Saturday, so, they can't officially kill you for doing that, but you certainly could lose your job, and you were suspect of being a parasite, and on and on and on. And children were discriminated against, and adults were discriminated against. You had to live on the fringe of society. This is why I brought this topic up, because not only what the Supreme Court decision means is it brought a whole group of people into society, but it also has now marginalized what happened. There isn't enough room. You can't just keep expanding the tent.
Right.
Room had to be made for some people to come in. Somebody had to get thrown out. And people who believe in the Bible got tossed out.
And I agree with you. And I think that's going to probably, sooner rather than later, I think we're going to see more problems with that.
Right.
Because you are the deviant in society. You're a bigot. And are your children going to have a problem if they don't want to adhere to that behavior, or if they don't want to accept that behavior? Are they going to have a problem in society now?
Now, we Jews who are therefore forced to take a historical look at this, so we at least have some place to fall back on. Particularly right now, today's the first day of the Hebrew month of Av. And the Hebrew month of Av is ushers in a sad period for the Jews. It culminates in the 9 days hence, the 9th day of the month of Av. Destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, the exile, going off into the Roman Empire. We've wandered around the world for 2,000 years since, and we've gone from country to country to country and have been tolerated in some places, less tolerated in other places, prospered in some places, not prospered in other places, prospered in some places, then not prospered in that same place. And been tossed out. So we have a rich heritage of knowing how to conduct ourselves in an environment that is at odds with us. But it's very, very tricky. A good example, we all know 1492, there was expulsion from Spain. While Columbus was trying to sail the ocean blue, the Jews were being expelled from Spain. People don't know that in the 1390s, there had been a huge, huge wave of Christian oppression of Jews in Spain. And it was shocking for the Jews because they had been living very comfortably as part and parcel of society.
A long time, yeah.
Society turned on them.
Yep.
And a lot of them, if they had been smart, would have packed their bags and gotten out. But what you say is, well, this is just a temporary event.
It's been said before, yes, many times in
history. It's bad. Maybe the next administration will straighten things out. Things go up and down, and we'll wait it out. And the reason we wait it out, of course, is because we're vested in a place. We were born there, we were raised there, we have economic ties to the place. We live comfortably. And, a lot of people, some people left, most people stuck it out. And
didn't work out that well.
Didn't play out too well. No. So, but we know we have a history, and we know that sometimes we live in a host country and a host culture, and it doesn't pan out. It's good for a while. We appreciate it while it's good. We try to be the best citizens we can while it's good. But the fact that it turns bad, we should not be surprised. Germany was a pretty good place for Jews for a while. It was a pretty bad place for Jews for a while. Then it was a good place for Jews for a while. Then it turned into being a bad place for Jews. So, we know about these things, ups and downs. And we also know that sometimes we cannot reconcile the two. That is the problem. Ultimately, we can't reconcile the two. The pity is many, many Jews have reconciled it by swapping in their Jewish identity for their American identity. And because of that, what will happen? What will happen if the government trains its sights on the Bible observers? I wonder where the rest of the Jews
I think
in America will be at on that issue.
Unfortunately, I don't think it'll be on the side that you're
yeah,
hoping.
Can I count on them to come to my aid?
No.
Not so sure.
I don't think so. Which is an interesting question because you bring it up, between obviously the Torah law versus the U.S. government. What happens with the Torah law versus Israeli government? I just thought in the same situation. What happens if the government in Israel, a country for Jews,
that is
goes that
a
way?
Really hot topic because there are many people that refuse to recognize the Israeli government because, you see, in America, I recognize this government because this is the government of the country, and I'm happy to be here. And if I don't like it, I can leave.
Right.
But, in Israel, every Jew feels that he's as much an owner as anyone
Right.
else. So what makes the government more powerful than me? Why does, let's say, Mr. Netanyahu have more of a right to live in Israel than Joe Goldberg?
Right.
And
right.
Joe Goldberg says, Netanyahu, I don't agree with the way you're running things. This is anti-Torah. This is a Jewish country. So Netanyahu will say, could he say back, no, this isn't a Jewish country. This is a secular democracy in the Middle East. So Joe Goldberg could say, no, I think it's a Jewish country. Now, why do you have more of a right than me?
That's a good point.
Who said, your family got persecuted in Europe more than mine? Nah, I think mine did.
Right.
So it's really a hot topic because there are a lot of people who don't really recognize the validity of the government in Israel, and certainly the validity of the government to make decisions that are antithetical to the Torah.
Interesting.
Very, very hot issue.
Because that's where I think that's even a deeper issue than obviously in this country.
Yeah.
This country, as you said, we could switch administrations. Maybe it could get better. Maybe things change. Maybe they don't. But it is kind of always hard to put the genie back in the bottle. So
it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Usually these trends move in one direction. We haven't seen them move in another direction. And really it's all fueled by the underpinning of the United States, which is freedom and tolerance. And if the United States would all of a sudden stop and be intolerant of anything, then it flies in the face of freedom. As a matter of fact, this is the issue that they're talking about now. Many people are screaming that our civil rights have been eroded in the right of defense and security. that we gave away our
Right,
civil
right.
rights by all these, the Defense Acts that allowed the government to do all this spying and snooping and all this type of stuff. People are screaming about this when the government wants to take away their guns, right? But, other people say, yeah, but we need defense. So you see those two. If the United States was going to stop and say, no, we're not tolerant anymore, that would fly in the face of everything the United States is all about.
I don't know, I'm just going to put a different perspective out there, and I think it's great to feel that this is all based on freedom. This is all based on we're the great tolerant country. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think a lot of this has to do, and then we've talked about it a lot on different shows and different episodes here, on progressivism. I still feel that this is a progressive issue. Obviously, putting the genie back in the bottle goes against everything progressivism stands for. By nature, we need to progress. And this, to many people in this country, is progress. Not because it's free, but I believe because it does exactly what we're talking about here. It does go against the Torah. It does go against the Bible. And many people in this country in the U.S., feel that we don't need a set of values. We don't need something that's 2,000 years old, 3,000 years old, telling us exactly how we should feel. And I've said it before on the show, there's 613 things that they're against. Listen, if it has anything to do with any kind of what you would call sexual deviancy, I'm all for it. That's what a progressive is for. If you look at every place and everywhere we're going in this country, that's what we're doing. We're going against it, where we can say, no, we don't believe in the Torah. We don't believe in God. We don't believe anyone has the right to tell me that I can do anything I want to do. It's not because I'm free. I can do anything I want to do because who's to say that your values are correct? My values say that homosexuality is great. My values say that bestiality is great. That pedophilia is great. How can you tell me it's wrong? And I think that's where it's going.
People have said, someone said to me that, the Supreme Court doesn't follow the Torah. Like, can you get it? And my response is, yes, I understand the Supreme Court's not going to follow the Torah. And I understand that's why these decisions were logical. No one was surprised.
Right.
The way this, whatever the little political maneuverings they had to do in order to get there and so on and so forth. But no one was surprised with the outcome because, of course, the Supreme Court doesn't follow the Torah. All I want to point out is just one basic thing. The Supreme Court doesn't follow the Torah, but generally the two have been able to coexist.
I think 100% they have.
Happily coexist.
I can't recall a time where they haven't.
The only thing I could say, I was thinking about it, I was saying abortion. But abortion is a really interesting thing. Abortion's a real don't ask, don't tell. Very rare you bump into someone and they tell you, I just came back from having an abortion.
Right.
Or you don't like your doctor sitting around making chit chat like, yeah, I do abortions all the time.
Right.
People just don't talk about it too much.
People know it's not really the best thing out there.
Right, right. So really, people don't talk about that too much. So even though the government officially endorsed it, allows it, protects it, sanctions it, whatever it is, but the bottom line is it's not in your face all that much. But this is much more in your face. And it's going to require almost a certain allegiance, a certain acceptance. So not that I'm faulting the government for its decision, because that is the will of the people, and the Supreme Court usually follows the will of the people, but it does put a certain group of people, like myself, at odds with the government. Like I said, in order to bring the other people into the tent, someone had to be kicked out to make room for it.
See, the only difference in my opinion and yours is I think it went the other way. In order to kick these people out of the tent, we had to get more people in it.
Could be. I always try to ascribe.
You're the glass full, half full guy.
I try to ascribe noble motives and understand the opponent,
right.
The other side. I try to presume that they have lofty motives that I disagree with, but nonetheless, given their assumptions, I understand where they're going.
I got you.
So I try to do that. And you're right, maybe it's not, maybe I should look at it your way. But even if I do look at it their way, it does put me at odds for the first time with the government, and I think that it's just going to be heightened and heightened and heightened, and therefore forces us to start thinking differently about who we are, where we are in America as Jews, and how we raise our children as Jews. And it's tough.
It's interesting. My fear is that it's going to force you more than you think, because I think it's going to come in your face a lot quicker to decide which way you need to think. I think it's going to be, in fact, it's the one thing we got to look at, and I read an article about this the other day. There has never been any kind of civil rights type act that's happened this fast. From a year, this really is a year since the president, in the middle of a presidential campaign, decided he was now for gay marriage. A year's time, this thing has almost come to a conclusion.
Right.
And nothing's ever happened that fast before. And I think this is progressing a lot faster than we thought.
Well,
I think there's going to be issues.
The Supreme Court wouldn't have supported it without the president already saying he's for it. When the president says he's for it and gets elected,
Yeah.
that means that the country is for it. So the Supreme Court, using whatever legal means they have to, will find in that direction, because the Supreme Court wants to stay in touch with the sentiment of the populace.
Which I guess is true. I hope you're right. I hope this is more of a positive thing, and but obviously it's not. Either way, you're not saying it's a positive thing.
I'm not saying it's a positive, and I'm saying what it is a wake-up call to those of us that would try to reconcile this, and even to other Jews who don't want to reconcile it, to other Jews who believe in the rights, homosexual rights and marriage and all that type of stuff, right? I wonder what will happen, and where will they stand when their co-religionists come out against this. Or don't have to come out. They've already been out against this since forever. How are they going to stand? Are they going to prosecute it? Are they going to stand by and watch and say, well, you wanted to take that path. It's your tough luck. You lose out on being an American.
I think you got it right there. That's what's going to happen. I'm just waiting for the next Prada shoe to fall. I'm telling you, it's going to happen soon. All right, well, very interesting topic, and I have a feeling we'll be talking about this a little bit more in the future, because I don't think we're done with this.
Or maybe we won't be able to talk about
maybe
it.
we won't. Maybe we won't.
Maybe we'll be science. This might be one. Yeah, this might be a collector's item.
This might be. You get a lot of censoring going on in here. All right. Well, I think this conversation is going to continue on, and as we can, let's talk about it in the future. All right.